Hello, everyone. Today I have with me an amazing and inspirational person. His name is Alessandro. Alessandro is the founder and managing partner of advisory firm Pacemakers.io, specializing in digital transformation in payments, financial services, and banking organizations. He has extensive experience in advising startups, as well as he has led digital transformation at large enterprises such as Lloyds Banking Group, PayPal UK, and G Capital, to name a few. He's also a known executive director of Cash Plus Bank, mentor to several fintech startups, and an investor in a number of early stage tech companies. Alessandro is a well-known figure in European fintech, as well as a frequent speaker at events across the globe. His latest book, Reinventing Banking and Finance, was rated overall best book on banking of 2021 by Investopedia in the US. He's passionate about innovation and transformation, and he is here with me today to talk about diversity and inclusion. Thank you so much, Alessandro, for being with me on this video series. Would love to hear from you around the dimensions that you see in terms of diversity and inclusion agenda.
So I think if you look at the diversity and inclusion, I think you have to look at it in a variety of dimensions. In a corporate setting, I think there's three main dimensions. And then there's a fourth element that actually brings everything together. I think the first dimension is that diversity and inclusion and excluding people because of who they are is morally wrong. So there's a moral dimension to that. And it's something that affects everybody in the organization. Everybody that is a customer, supplier, etc., is also affected. The second dimension, I think, is economic. And by excluding certain segments as customers, by excluding certain segments as employees, partners, and so on, you're actually limiting the economic access that you have. You're making your business less effective. You're making yourself less impactful. And I think that is a fundamental issue. And the third element is transformational. So what happens when you have a wider, more diverse group of people, the innovative spirit, the innovative capabilities of these people actually become part of your patrimony or part of your wealth as an organization. By having more diverse people, you can come up with ideas that are better than what you would have if you had a much more limited set of people, much more uniform set of people. And it's proven that in more diverse settings, creativity increases, innovation increases, and quality of the proposition increases simply for the different perspectives that people bring to the discussion. And I think what all brings everything together is a word that is being quite often misused today, which is empathy, is recognition of the other as more similar to us than more different than us.
Wow, well said, Alessandro. And I'm so glad that with somebody at your level and your experience, considering that you're advising boards and C-suite, it is important to you, and you are able to connect the agenda with the commercial outcome as well, with the innovation and the transformation agenda that many boards and sort of the C-suite faces as they grow the organizations. That leads me to the next question, Alessandro. How can organizations become more inclusive in terms of talent management as well as retention?
Interesting. I think the number one aspect of that is recognizing that you have a problem and recognizing that you are actually not inclusive, and you're recognizing that you are discriminating against certain segments. And to do this, I think you need to rely on data. And I think you need to not think about your gut feelings as, of course, I am not racist, of course, I'm not discriminating, I'm not sexist, and so on. But look at your data. Do you pay your male, female, minority employees the same? Do they have the same pays? Are they getting promoted? How does your C-suite look like? Is it reflective of society, or is it just reflective of how the C-suites in the past have looked like? I think start off with that and start measuring how you are. Secondly, set some targets that you want to achieve and some objectives that you want to have, and then stick to them and reward the organization for sticking to them, and create start measuring the benefit that they create for you, so they become embedded into the way you operate.
Oh, you're so right, Alessandro, and I like the sort of perspective of how you see that as an important milestone or important topic in the boardroom, and then be able to monitor, measure, and track how we are doing against that goalpost as well.
And I think challenge yourself also. If you're in a board or a senior executive, look at when you say, well, there aren't any good IT people who are from that specific group. Challenge yourself. How can that be? And secondly, it's easier for you to find people that are of a certain kind in the certain searches that you do, because they're a part of your network more potentially. Expand your network. So expand and make looking at having people that are from different backgrounds a requirement. And start practices that allow you not to bring your bias in too quickly. So for example, when you look at CVs, eliminate the name and the sex of the individual, or possibly even the age of the individual, and start looking at what's achieved and see if the fit is there. At that point, then you start the interviewing process. You will have to know who they are because of that. But at the first screening, take away all the metrics that define segments that can be potentially used for discrimination.
You talked about biases and how organizations can take steps and to sort of address those biases. I'm going to ask you personally, Alessandro, how do you overcome and challenge biases personally, as well as with people around you?
Well, I think in my case, I'm married to a professional woman, and she's from a minority background. And until I met her, I actually thought that I wasn't racist, and I thought that I wasn't sexist. And luckily, this is close to 30 years ago now. But you have to, at some point, recognize that you have flaws. And you have to recognize if you have been brought up in a society where you are the non-discriminated entity, and that society is discriminatory, it's very likely that you have some of these traits, okay? And you have to start recognizing that they are there, and start picking them out and identifying decisions that you've made, or choices that you've made, or feelings that you have inside, anxieties that happen to you when a certain type of person engages with you, and so on and so forth. So when you think about somebody working for you and you think, okay, do they have the ability to take the next job? Is it based on what they've delivered, or is it based on something else that it's embedded into your mind? So start looking at your own behavior as a first starting point. And realize that you go through stages of evolution. The first stage is to you will be unconsciously incompetent. So you're unconsciously racist, but you think you're not. And this is the whole discussion of white fragility and so on that sometimes comes about in more racial terms, is exactly that, not recognizing that you have these flaws. You then have to start working on them. You become consciously incompetent. So you realize that you have some flaws, but you don't know what to do with them. The third stage is that you start creating some tactics and some very specific activities that you do to address these, and then you become consciously competent. So you have to work at it. And the nirvana is to get unconsciously competent, but I don't think that I will ever be able to do that, because I am coded in a certain way. So I have to constantly work at it, and I constantly have to remind myself and think about this decision that you're making, this sentence that you're saying. Is it because, are you being fair? Are you being honest? And this, you have to live in anxiety, but that's the part of where we have to live. And it's a transition. So I think that my children will not have as many problems as I do, not because I'm a great parent, but because they live in a society that recognizes these things. So they are creating the antibodies to address them, and I don't have them. So I have to work at it. So I have to take the medicine on a regular basis. So I think, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the way I look at it, Smita.
It does, Alessandro, and really appreciate you sharing your own sort of personal experiences and acknowledging that, hey, we all have biases. It's about what we do with them and move forward. So really, really appreciate. I'm sure the viewers are going to love the utmost, I would say, honesty, and with the humility you've shared the same as well. Are there any differences you see in terms of challenges that female-led fintech founders face versus male founders?
Yes, there are, and I think it goes in many different directions. I think one of them is that I find that female CEOs are more qualified usually than male CEOs. And I apologize to other companies that I mentor, but I find that the women usually are higher quality individuals, and they have worked harder to get to where they are than people of my sex. And that is one dimension. And they constantly feel that they are, if they're thinking about a new task that they want to undertake, if they're able to do 80% of that task, they think that they're not comfortable, they're not competent. If you get a man that is able to do 30% of the task, they think that they're experts. Okay, so I think that mindset has to change, and I think that it's through the years. Again, they have grown up in a place where they have not, it's not been a level playing field, and therefore they have created some antibodies that they have to kind of deal with.
That takes me to the last question, Alessandro. Amazing conversation so far. What does the future state look like for you, and how do we get there?
I'm an optimist. So I think at some point we will get to a place where D&I will be irrelevant, that companies will be representative of society, that everybody will have the access to the resources that they need based on who they are, not what their background is or what their gender is, or any other differentiation. I think that is potentially coming simply because we are visualizing it, simply because we can envisage a world where all of these things happen a certain way. And in any journey, the most important aspect of any journey are two things. One is identifying your destination, and secondly, taking the first step. And I think we've done both. I'm optimistic.
Love it, Alessandro. To optimism, and for us to keep moving forward, having the courage to be able to acknowledge and put in place structured mechanisms, specifically like we talked at an organization level, have that as your core agenda. Progress will be made if we sort of measure, monitor again to set targets and goals that we set. Lovely to have you, Alessandro, on our video series, and I hope the viewers found it very interesting and insightful. And we look forward to seeing more and more insights coming from you in the coming podcasts.
Thank you very much, Smita. It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.